October 2015. Twickenham is drowning in silver confetti. The All Blacks stand arm in arm, world champions again. But one of the most dangerous backs of his generation isn't there. At home, in a quiet living room far from the noise, Charles Piutau watches the celebration on TV. 17 caps. Game-breaking pace. Footwork that made international defenders look like training cones. And still, not selected. No World Cup. No medal. No haka on the biggest stage. For most players, that's the end of the dream. The moment the story starts to fade. But what if this snub, this public rejection from the most ruthless team in world rugby, was actually the spark? What if the kid from a garage in South Auckland was about to rewire the rugby map, from New Zealand, to Europe, to Japan, and all the way back to the red of Tonga? This is the story of the superstar the All Blacks let go, and the island nation that refused to. Welcome to Blood, Sweat and Tries. Salisi Tuipulotu Charles Piutau was born on the 31st of October, 1991, the youngest of 10 children, into a Tongan family that knew exactly what sacrifice meant. South Auckland. Working class. Cramped. The Piutaus didn't talk about poverty, they talked about responsibility. Charles and his siblings slept in the garage next to the family house. Thin walls, cold concrete, one small space for a giant dream. His father worked whatever jobs he could find. His mother ran the home like a military base. Faith, discipline, respect. In a world where some kids had private academies and perfect pitches, Charles had cracked concrete, second-hand boots, and a ball. But he also had something you can't coach, a deep, burning fear of wasting the opportunity his parents had crossed an ocean for. At 13, a moment hit him like a tackle he never saw coming. After church, Pastor William Ola pulled him aside, looked him in the eyes, and said words that would haunt and drive him for years. You're going to play for the All Blacks, but your journey will test everything you believe about yourself. Back then, it sounded impossible. Too small, too raw, too many kids with better connections, better schools, better everything. But on muddy school fields, the pattern started to emerge. Ball in hand, Piutau moved differently. Low center of gravity, violent late step, balance that made the first tackler almost a formality. Where other teenagers coasted on talent, Charles trained like every session was an exit exam from that garage. Fitness, skills, extras after training, not for a contract, not for fame, but for family. For Tonga. For that prophecy. He rose through the Auckland age grades, then burst onto the scene with Auckland and the Blues. And finally, in 2013, the phone call. All Blacks camp. Pack your boots. The kid from the garage had reached the black jersey. But wearing it was only half the fight. Keeping it would break him first. Between 2013 and 2015, Charles Piutau won 17 caps for New Zealand. He scored tries, broke lines, set up teammates, and looked every bit like the future of the All Blacks back three. Then came the 2015 Rugby World Cup squad announcement. No Piutau. Selection politics, contract decisions, the ruthless next man up mentality, whatever the reasons, the message was clear. In the most cutthroat team in rugby, even world class wasn't always enough. For Charles, the black jersey dream was shattered. So he made a decision that shook New Zealand purists and lit up the European market. He left. In 2016, he landed at Wasps in England's Premiership. Not as a fading All Black, but as a man on a mission. Wasps handed him the 15 jersey and the license to roam. And what followed was one of the most explosive seasons European rugby had seen from a back three player. In the Premiership in Europe, Piutau became chaos in human form. Double-digit tries across all competitions. Hundreds of meters carried every month. Defenders beaten for fun, often in double figures per match. But it wasn't just highlight reel stuff. His game IQ surged. He popped up as first receiver. He created line breaks with subtle passes. He kicked smart, covered space early, and turned defense into counterattack in a single, terrifying stride. On paper, it was his breakthrough European season. In reality, it was something deeper. The moment Charles Piutau stopped trying to fit into someone else's system, and became the system. April 16, 2016. European Champions Cup quarter-final. Wasps vs Exeter Chiefs. Ricoh Arena. Knockout rugby at its nastiest. Scoreboard. Wasps 19, Exeter 22. 77th minute. Exeter, the rising English powerhouse, are minutes away from a famous away win. Wasps need something miraculous. They need belief. They get Charles Piutau. 77 minutes 23 seconds. Scrum to Wasps just inside Exeter territory. Ball goes out, recycled quickly. It swings left. Piutau hovers in the backfield, scanning. He isn't waiting for the game to happen. He's hunting a weakness. The ball comes to him just outside the 40-meter mark. 3 Exeter defenders are already drifting across. The safe play. Kick deep, play territory, pray for a penalty. But safe was never why he left New Zealand. He tucks the ball and goes. One explosive step off the right. The first defender is gone, grabbing at thin air. A quick fend, sharp angle. The second defender overcommits, hips turned, balance gone. Now he's through the first line. Ricoh Arena snaps awake. The noise hits another level. 25 meters out, the field compresses. 5 Exeter jerseys swarm. Piutau has milliseconds to decide. Pass, kick, or back himself. He drops his height, keeps the ball tight, eyes scanning like a chess player 3 moves ahead. A half gap opens inside the drifting cover. Tiny, barely there. He doesn't hesitate. Left foot, right foot, that trademark late double step that killers are made of. The final defender's feet cross, shoulders square to the wrong space. Piutau slices between them and dives. Try. The stadium detonates. Final score, Wasps 25, Exeter 24. In one run, Charles Piutau had summed up his entire career to that point. Ignored the safe option. Backed his instincts. And turned rejection into ruthlessness. That game turned him from ex-All Black into a European superstar. Premiership player of the season contender. One of the highest paid players on the planet. The kid from the garage had just ripped apart one of England's best defences, with an entire continent watching. It's easy to get lost in the highlights, the bounce steps, the broken ankles, the monster contracts at Wasps, Ulster, Bristol, and then Japan. But the real story of Charles Piutau lives off the field. Teammates talk about a quiet leader. Not the loudest voice in the changing room, but the one people watch when the pressure hits. You don't need to shout when your work rate does the talking. In Belfast with Ulster, he didn't just score tries, he became the emotional anchor for a team rebuilding its identity. In Bristol, he helped drag the Bears from pretenders to genuine premiership title contenders, posting elite numbers, meters gained in the hundreds, line break assists piling up, defenders beaten like it was a weekly hobby. And all the while, his heart was still tied to two places. South Auckland and Tonga. Money came. Headlines came. But ask anyone around him, and they'll tell you the same thing. Charles never forgot the garage. Never forgot the parents who gambled everything. Never forgot the prophecy. So when World Rugby changed its eligibility rules, allowing players to switch back to their nation of heritage after a stand-down period, Piutau made a call that wasn't about image, wasn't about trophies. It was about home. He pledged to Tonga. Not to chase easy test caps, but to give back to the islands that had filled stadiums with flags and faith long before the professional era cared. In 2022, at 33 years old, he finally walked onto a Rugby World Cup field, not in black, but in red. For Tonga. For his family. For every kid in a garage who dares to dream past the big nations. So what is Charles Piutau's legacy? On paper, 17 caps for the All Blacks. European stardom at Wasps, Ulster, and Bristol. One of the highest paid players in world rugby. A late but powerful chapter with Tonga on the world stage. But numbers barely scratch the surface. He represents something uncomfortable for the traditional powers. That sometimes, the system gets it wrong. That some talents don't fit neatly into one jersey or one narrative. For Pacific Island and diaspora kids around the world, Piutau is proof that you can be overlooked by the biggest machine in rugby, and still become one of the most feared players on the planet. For Tonga, he is part of a new wave, former Tier 1 stars returning to lift their ancestral nations, not out of pity, but out of pride. And for the game itself, he poses a question that refuses to go away. How many more Charles Piutaus are out there, kids in garages, in townships, in villages, who just need one chance, one coach, one moment, to change everything? Today, in Japan with the Shizuoka Blue Revs, Piutau's step is still vicious, his vision still sharp. He may not wear the black jersey again. But the red of Tonga, that's a colour that doesn't wash off. So here's the verdict. Charles Piutau is not the All Black who missed a World Cup. He's the Tongan kid who refused to let one decision define him. From the garage in South Auckland, to the 80th minute winner in Europe, to the World Cup stage in Tongan red, his story is a reminder. You can take the medal off a man's neck. You can cross his name off a squad list. But you cannot measure heart with a selection meeting. The only real question now is, when the history of Pacific rugby is written, when they talk about the players who changed the game for the islands, will Charles Piutau be remembered as a star who shone brightest in Europe? Or as the pioneer who proved that the real superpower might just be the islands the world tried to overlook? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.